name is Dina Beth. I'm with the Queen Within Consulting. I am so delighted to be with you here today. We have our special guest, Lindsay McCarthy, Lindsay Kaufman McCarthy with us. This incredible woman has written a book, and she's done some wonderful things to support mothers, stay-at-home moms that love to get some support around what's going on with their kiddos, and she's amazing with her blog as well. We'll be talking about those little details here shortly. So welcome everyone. Welcome, Lindsay. For those of you that are coming in on our live, if you're coming in from, on the replay, please feel free to type in the word replay here in the chat so that we know to come back and give you some love a little later on. For those of you coming in live right now, we would love to know where you're coming in from. So type in maybe where you're from, like a Texas, or if we have a Pennsylvania or Australia, we'd love to know who's in the house with us this beautiful morning. It's almost noon here. I'm coming just north of the Grand Canyon. I believe Lindsay's back east, so it's a little bit later for her, but we're super happy to have all of you joining us here. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Lindsay. This amazing woman is not only a wife, but a mom of two wonderful kids. She's the co-author of The Miracle Morning for Parents, which I can't imagine what would be more important than taking some of those miracle morning principles or habits or keys, if you may, and putting them into our life as parents. And of course, to help ourselves create better families is the whole point of everything I do. So super excited to have Lindsay here with us. She is the creator of gratefulparent.com, where she blogs. She grew up in Pennsylvania and now splits her time between Austin, Texas, and Rocky Mountains, Colorado. So I believe you recently moved to Texas. Is that correct, Lindsay?
We did, literally last week. So
last week moved to Texas. So welcome to big country, wide open spaces. We sure have love that you're able to get out here where it's a little bit warmer, hopefully. She enjoys writing, gardening, playing field hockey, which sounds amazing. She loves to travel, and she had a favorite trip here, which was a honeymoon to, how do you say that,
Curacao.
Yeah. Curacao, wow. And then Bonaire, is that Bonaire as well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're little islands right next to each other.
So. Aw, lucky, sounds amazing. So her and her husband became certified scuba divers at that time, which sounds absolutely amazing. So we'll make sure all of our contact information is available in the chat here. This live is really to support so many of us that may be struggling with, one thing, one degree or another of some of these different things that we've all encountered at one point in the journey. When it comes to like feeling stuck, if you're the kind of person that's been feeling stuck lately, maybe you have some resentment or some blaming going on in your relationship, you have to forgive us. I don't know about anybody else, but I'm cold. I really got my husband's overcoat on right now. Whew, deep breaths here with the cold coming on. Let's see, if you've had a lot of resentment or blaming going on, perhaps you feel like you've been in survival mode, which I know I've absolutely been in way too many times, I'd like to admit. Often we go into like autopilot. We feel like we really don't have a say in how things are playing out. We often feel like our partner's just way too close-minded. And the life that we're living is kind of more the bare minimum of what we'd hoped for. I don't know if you've ever felt that way, Lindsay, but I sure have. The apathy shows up sometimes in a relationship, and sometimes we just really need to get a clearer vision for our life and the relationship we crave. For those of you that are listening, I'd love to hear in the chat if any of those resonate with you. Maybe just send us a little, high five or hey, pick me. I get it. I've been there, done that. We'd love to hear from you what your personal struggle is, what you're going through, how you can get some more support around these things. If you'd like to send us a little note in the chat, maybe personal messages, we're sure welcome to connect and reach out. So we're going to get into our content here. We have some amazing things to share with you today. And really the focus is showing up as a heroine in our marriage. So how to be a heroine is no small thing. And I believe that Lindsay has some really great tips that are going to bring this full circle for us and give us really, really great insights about what it looks like to really show up, not only for ourselves, but for those that we love. We're going to be looking at playfulness and the importance of it. We're going to talk about purposefulness and how that makes a massive impact on the results we get, not only in parenting, but in our marriage. And of course, how we can look at perspective and how that plays out in so many layers and levels. When I was talking to Lindsay earlier, she was saying, no, I'm not a coach, but I am happy to talk to anybody that wants to talk to me. What I know about life is that really just having a friend sometimes can make all the difference, someone to talk to when we're struggling. So if you're a mom that is looking for some great tips on how to support yourself as in the journey, that's what Lindsay is all about. And we're going to be jumping into this topic here, how to be a heroine. And I really believe that Lindsay inspired this because she has really inspired me with her story. And so we're going to jump right in here and talk about that. So Lindsay, you're willing to share something kind of open and vulnerable and a little bit like, some of your journey, what happened when you first got married and how it was for you and, working with Mike. And I would love to hear your personal take on how that was and what really shifted things for you and just like, showing up the way I described heroine. So tell us a little bit about what it was like for you when you first met Mike and how things were going and not going so well and how things got turned around. We'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I think when Mike and I first started dating, it was kind of like a whirlwind romance. And but soon after we started dating, he got in a little trouble with the law. And because of that, he kind of went on this downward spiral where he gained quite a few pounds and he kind of stopped taking care of himself. And he kind of went into this like depression state. And for me, that was really hard because, I kind of saw him as my rock. And then to have him be in this state where I kind of had to take a more of a leadership role. I still had 1 year of field hockey. I played field hockey in college. So the summer before I went back, I had to train a lot for field hockey. And so I would just encourage him like, hey, Mike, why don't you come for a run with me? And he was a cross country runner back in high school. So he and I started running again together. And I remember our first run, like I was running circles around him. I'm like, come on, like try to catch me. And within 2 weeks, he was running circles around me. And I'm like, wait, slow down.
Doesn't that just make you, it's like one of those things that's frustrating. Guys get muscles so much faster than we do because of testosterone. It's like, what? That's crazy. Tell me more. I'd love to hear more.
Yeah, so that's just one small example of, how I started getting him. And it was more focusing on myself than focusing on anything that he was or wasn't doing. It was more focusing on, hey, how can I show up in this relationship that, might inspire him to come along for the ride. And, I think it went both ways too, because I lived a very kind of sheltered life. I didn't do things that were at all risky. And he was very spontaneous and loved to travel. And so he took me to Florida, and he actually got me to skip a week of classes to attend this real estate conference with him in Las Vegas. And I would have never thought to do anything like that before I met him. So he kind of brought me out of my cave a little bit. And I think I brought him down to earth a little bit. So we kind of balanced each other out.
Thank you so much for being willing to share this with us. I know it's like, who dares talk about this stuff, right? Nobody. Very few, I should say. I love that you're willing to talk about it and be able to bring it out. And I love the things, I really want to just like bring out some morsels out of this. Number one, how much you brought out of each other. Like you said, the kind of a little more reserved to a little more outgoing and, get out there and see the world kind of approach. I mean, it's amazing how we can really bounce off of each other's weaknesses, strengths, and build some muscle where we didn't have it before. It's just so beautiful to hear that description. And then the other piece that I think is so, I really, really, really love these stories that bring out the best in those that we love, and it looks like inspiring them. And I really want to bring that out, that you inspired the best in Mike by showing up yourself as your best self, being playful, being, enticing and inviting and charming and enchanting, and just really eliciting the best in him to show up. I mean, suddenly he was taking his health more seriously. Suddenly he was showing up to making life, more meaningful. Like suddenly you sparked a life force in this man that maybe wasn't as active before. And I think as women, we often are unaware of how much life force we bring into the world, and that we are so inspiring when we are inspiring. Like when we're in that space, we can bring so much life into not only our own space, but into the space of those that are in our circle. And what's interesting about life is that we'll get together, we come together into a relationship, and then kind of things settle in, like it gets harder. Like, yeah, Betty forgot to do this, and oh, I'm really down on myself for that. And kind of we get into a little rattle. Does everybody feel familiar about this little journey? We fall into a little bit of a maybe apathy, or a little bit of judgmental, a little bit of criticism, a little bit of maybe complaining and not feeling content with our situation, and then things get really out of sorts in the relationship. So that we went from being very inspiring to not so inspiring. Anybody recognize that part of ourselves? And the trick with all that is it's almost like if he would just, and if he would only, then I could feel different. Then my life would be more what I need it to be. Then I could be happy. And I think what I'm hearing about this whole journey is that the absolute gift it is to really step back into that woman that was an inspirer. And the more we can remember that is the woman that brought out the best, in our partner, and that we can do that for ourselves. We can bring out the best in our partner when we're inspiring and we're in that mode of like, hey, come on, this is really awesome, you gotta try this. That can bring out better results than anything else we'll ever try. My experience with studying men for over 2 decades now, understanding what it takes to bring out the best in them is all about this. And so let's just kind of dive in a little bit here, because what we have with Lindsay is she's created date nights, parenting book, really, decided that there was a way to become exceptional as a parent. And she didn't want to just be, run of the mill, uninspiring mom. She wanted to really lean in. And so she created this formula. It had three pieces, which I think are absolutely essential. You can see the playfulness being very inspiring. You can see being very purposeful, being very inspiring. You can see being, having a perspective, being willing to change your perspective, being willing to see it from the other side, can really make the whole dynamic of relationship work, whether it be with your child, with your partner, with your boss. It's just all the same. Being willing to show up as your best self absolutely includes these three elements. So I'd love to hear from Lindsay, what kind of brought these to the surface, how they have played out, maybe tell us a little bit more about them. These are all included in her amazing book. And I'd love to hear from Lindsay about the book and the way that it's helped you and helped others. Tell us about your book and these elements.
Sure. So the book is called The Miracle Morning for Parents and Families, and Mike and I wrote it together. So when we were writing it, we would go on these date nights and we'd kind of have this dialogue about, well, what do we think exceptional parents do? How do they show up in the world? And we narrowed it down to those three elements. They're playful, they are purposeful, and they have perspective. And so in the book, we talk about, in the playfulness chapter is where we introduce this idea of charms, which is the acronym for the Miracle Morning for children. So the Miracle Morning, it's a 6-step process. And the original is the Life Savers. Hal Elrod wrote that book. And SAVERS stands for silence, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, and scribing. And if you do those 6 things every morning, it's just this way, an easy way, a framework for personal development. So we started doing that with our children, and we discovered that the savers don't apply to kids as well as they do to adults. So we played with the words and we created charms, which stands for creativity, health, affirmations, reading, meditation, and service. And so those are the 6 things our kids do every morning, or really every day. It's become more of kind of a lifestyle in our household than just a morning ritual.
Beautiful.
So under playfulness, the idea is that the charms should be playful. It shouldn't be another chore that you have to do. It shouldn't be, just a to-do list that you have to check off, but it should be in the spirit of play. So when they're being creative, it can be anything that they want. It's not just like, oh, you have to go journal now, or you have to do X, Y, and Z. It's that they get to be creative and use their imagination to come up with something to do on their own.
Beautiful. So if I may just interject, for those of you that are looking for advice with a relationship, you can see the importance of playfulness. The way that Lindsay described when she was enticing Mike to get out there on the track with her, it was playful. I mean, that's how you inspire people. And in the home, you want your children to be engaged. It looks like being playful, not demanding, and that top-down model. It never gets the results you want. So just being willing to show up in a playful way that's really generous, and hey, let's do this together and let's see how much fun we can make. And that is the way to inspire anyone to engage. So something to keep in mind in every relationship. How can just maybe ask yourself, how can I make this more enticing? How can I make this more inviting? How can I make this more interesting, so that it's something we're doing together instead of something that isn't really like about them and about me, but about like what I expect you to do. It's amazing how this relates in every relationship. Really being willing to show up in a playful way can transform the experience, because, by the way, playfulness entices and activates our spirit. And our spirit is going to be so much more likely to create something that's lasting, meaningful, interesting, passionate, generous than anything else we can come up with. So I love this piece, this playfulness piece, because it's so essential for anything that you want to do. As far as like when it comes to being a heroine, you've got to be a playful heroine. It's not going to work. So so we'd love to hear a little bit more about purposefulness and perspective. Tell us more.
Yeah, so purposefulness to us was just like having a plan. And Mike and I talk a lot about having flexibility within structure. So we have a lot of kind of rituals and traditions and rhythms that we kind of follow, but then within those there's a lot of room, a lot of wiggle room. So even the miracle morning itself, like this framework, it's 6 things, but you don't have to do them in any particular order. You really don't even have to do them in the morning. So like there's a lot of wiggle room within that framework. So we do that with a lot of things in our lives, our calendar, like we have family meetings. They're usually on the weekend, but when during the weekend is flexible. And the kids' activities, again, they're pretty set, but within that we still have lots of flexibility.
Well said. What a beautiful way to live. One thing I note for my own journey is that whatever I get started with in the morning plays out in everything. Like, it is amazing what these very intentional ways of behaving and believing and setting your day up. Like you said, it's kind of, it like fans into everything we do. It just becomes part of a way of life and a way of being. And I absolutely treasure what you're sharing with us, because these are some of the basic things that make such a huge difference
as we continue to, play out our journey and like I said, really raise intentional children that have a vision, that are clear about what they want, that are able to pursue what matters most to them. We can support our partner in the same thing. It's really that being very intentional and willing to, also find flexibility in that structure. That's what creates an extraordinary life. I absolutely love what you're sharing with us. So we want to hear a little bit more about perspective, and then we'll wrap this all up with a few last comments. So tell us about perspective.
Yeah, so I mean, in the book, we talk about perspective as from a parenting perspective, like our kids are their own people, but our spouses is their own person too. So it could go either way. And it's just that, we're all on these journeys, hero's journey, if you will, and all those circles are kind of intersecting within our family. So I'm on my own hero's journey. I have my own goals and dreams and visions, and I share them with my family so that they can support me in those. And like my husband, he has his own dreams and values and wishes that he's working towards. And when he shares them with us, then we can support him. And I think it's really important for parents to understand that like our kids have their own too. And, we can't always just live vicariously through our kids. And that the best way for us to inspire our kids is to go after our own dreams. Yes. And so that's what Mike and I try to teach our kids, and not by telling them, but by showing them, and actively always be working towards some sort of goal or vision for our own lives.
So well said. Oh, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. So when I hear perspective, what I've heard what you said, the way you described perspective was a little bit different than what I would say it would be, but I would like to add to what you said. I want to also mention, though, that perspective of what you described there was really powerful and needed, and that is that to recognize that they are their own person, I think is such a big piece. But I think another piece to add to that would be noticing that they are their own person, and for us to honor that by, in a sense, getting to know them. I mean, it's really difficult to love someone if you don't understand them, and being willing to see it from their perspective, being willing to see it from the other side of the table. And what's amazing about that is you become, instead of kind of the enemies, sometimes we often have adversarial stuff going on in our relationships where it's like this tug of war about who's right and who's wrong and who's got it figured and who doesn't know, to actually being on the same side of the table. And I see perspective as so much being willing to see it from the other person's eyes is such a huge piece in our journey in learning how to create sustainable relationships that can truly stand the test of time. I love to look at it as like the recipe for happily ever after. It only happens when we're willing to play on the same team, truly, because we understand ourselves, we understand our partner, and we understand our child, we understand what's going on, so that we're willing to go there. It takes some something special, some special skill sets, wouldn't you say, Lindsay, that to just really like go there and allow for that other side to be like truly, like engaged with in a different way than maybe just, okay, I got it. I'm good. I know who you are. I know what you're thinking. What if we don't know? What if we haven't taken the time to listen enough? And I just love what you're doing with your family. I love what you've shared here with us today. Is there any last minute, wrap it up kind of thoughts, if you were to share with our listeners? Is there someone that that may be struggling with some of these things? What is something that they would really benefit from hearing at this point in the conversation that really adds value to this, what we've talked about today?
I think it always comes back to you. Like whatever problems you're thinking are happening out there, they're really happening within inside yourself. And if and when we can recognize those things and heal them in our own being, it just radiates out to all of our relationships. So I always encourage people, start with yourself.
Yes. I could not sanction that statement more fully. It is matter. And that's not always an easy journey. That's not always easy. Like, where do I turn? Who do I, where do I go? What book do I read? What seminar do I go to? What class do I need to, dive into so that I can really get to the bottom of that? And it is a journey. So know that it's a wonderful journey, and that's exactly why I'm here. Queen Within Consulting is all about exactly that, supporting you in the journey. So thank you for those of you that are able to join us today. We'll leave some links here for you to connect with Lindsay. If there's something more that you'd like to ask her, feel free to reach out to me personally. Send us a direct message or on Facebook. This broadcast will be sent out to several channels, so feel free to share with anyone that you might know personally that is struggling, would like some support in this area. You can grab the URL and pop it in their inbox, and I'm sure they'd be delighted to be able to hear some of these messages we've been able to go over today. There are some real morsels here. So excited that we were able to learn from Lindsay today. We're looking forward to learning more from her, and appreciate the incredible work that you're doing there with your family, and the parenting blog, and the way that you're able to show up with an amazing book that you wrote together with your husband as co-authors. What a tremendous gift to humanity and to the journey of being a parent, to be able to reach out to people like you and get some of those reminders and just the little things. It's the little tweaks that we can make that can make such a big difference in the big picture. So glad we were able to connect today. I know we were a little bit behind schedule, but thank you so much for your patience. If there's anyone here that would like to, again, have more information, you will want to connect with our Happy Homes and Hearts group here on Facebook so that you can continue to receive these live feeds and get this incredible little morsels of information that can truly make all the difference for you. Looking forward to connecting with you soon. Have a beautiful day. Thanks again, and take care.
Bye.
Thank you, Lindsay.